This is a Glendale Library Arts and Culture program, created for teens, edited and hosted by the Teen Library staff. Check out community service opportunities and teen events down in the description box.
This episode is part of Glendale Library Arts and Cultures and the Southern California Library Cooperative's Be the Change series, which focuses on inclusion, diversity, equity, and anti-racism.
Be the Change events will build a collective understanding of systematic racism, elevate the voices and stories of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and inspire our community to be the change. Hi, everyone. This is Desiree.
And Mike.
Melissa couldn't be here today, but welcome to our guest episode of Teen Gen Talks. Today's guest is a voice actor, narrator, radio commercial producer, live announcer, writer, storyteller, and world traveler. He has been a full-time voiceover professional since 2004 and has provided voice for companies large and small, as well as been featured on hundreds of radio commercials.
Grab a snack and drink, and let's welcome Dane to Teen Gen Talks.
Yay! Let's get started.
All right, let's do it.
So thank you so much, Dane, for taking the time out of your day to talk to us. We have a lot to discuss today.
Okay, all right. I'm ready. I'm excited. Yeah. And I want to thank you guys for inviting me on, giving me an opportunity to talk to young people, not only about what I do, but giving them a chance to be creative in thinking about their future and their careers. So I'm excited about that. Anytime that I can, help in any way, I love it.
Awesome. So to start off this interview, if you can tell us your journey of how you got to where you are now and when this passion for voiceovers come to be.
How long do we have? Because, the passion, look, I think all of the things in your life start to bring you towards one path, right? I can tell you that it started when my college professor told me that I needed to do voiceover, right? So that's one starting point. But then I can go back further and tell you about when my brother was into music and he first started buying music equipment, recording equipment. And I was in New York and he made a beat. And he said, "Hey, you should rap on this beat." And it was like a West Coast beat. And I'm an East Coast guy. We're East Coast people. We're New Yorkers, right? And so it was like a Dr. Dre type thing. And I was like, I should just rap like Too Short, right? And so I start doing this voice and I'm rapping over this beat. So that's a starting point for me. But I can go all the way back to when I was 4 years old. My brother used to beat me up and my mother was at work. And so I used to call her job to complain about my older brother. That's what younger brothers and sisters do. We snitch on the older brothers, right? And so I would call. So my mother, she didn't want to be interrupted while she was doing work for things that for her were trivial. But for me, I'm 4 years old. This guy is bullying me, right? So, this has got to be taken care of. And so I would call and she had the switchboard operator handle all of the issues. But I wanted to talk to my mommy. I don't want to talk to the switchboard operator. I want to talk to my mommy. And she would never let me talk to my mommy. And so I already had, I had a kid's voice, but I also had a little rumble to my voice, right? So I can go back and forth. I can even do women's voices at the time, right? And so I would call the switchboard and I would make up a name. I would sound like an adult of some sort, right? Male, female. And I would say, I wanted to speak to Audrey. And so they would ask who it is and I would make up a name and they would put me to Audrey. And, they may say, my mother would come on, "Hey, Mr. Smith, mommy!" Right?
Wow.
And so I tell these stories, right? Because I feel like oftentimes every human being has an entire book worth of experience to write and tell. And you don't realize how these little things add up to a point where, wow, you've been doing this so long that you have a career. I'm sure there are lots of other things, right? I could be a travel blogger, for instance, right? I could tell stories about us being on the road when I was younger. I could be a sociologist. I could be a political scientist. My family was deeply involved in politics when I was younger, but something about voiceover, when I started to look at all of the things in my life, it just came to this. And so officially, my journey started in 2004 when I just made a decision. I was working as a substitute teacher, and something just said to me, even though I was preparing myself at that time to go back to school and become a full-time teacher, something stopped me and said, no, you need to be your own boss, and you need to do something that brings out the creativity in you. And so I worked as a sub for another 2 years while I got started as a voiceover talent. And in 2006, I went full time, and I haven't looked back.
Wow. So those early experiences when you were 4, calling your mum,
Yeah.
did that give you confidence as a young man, as a young person, knowing that you had this ability, this skill?
No, I don't. I think, when you're back then, I just had the confidence that I could break through and hopefully save myself from getting beat up. I don't think, when you're 4, you're not thinking about those kind of things,
With voiceovers, you have to find your voice, and I think like I do broadcast. I'm a
Okay.
broadcast journalist.
Awesome.
And so they always tell us, you have to find your voice. You have to, for the camera and all of that stuff. So was it, I mean, you've had a unique ability since you were young, but once you started this journey, was it hard for you to find your voice or to perfect, your voice in a way for all of these voiceovers?
I started off being others, right? I started off listening to some of the radio imaging guys on the radio and imitating what they do, right? Because obviously they're the professionals, they're the ones who are getting paid. I started off thinking that that the only way to do this was the way that they did it, right? The way that it's already being done. And what I learned is that I was best at listening to them and then Danifying it, right? Being me, right? Not trying to be them. I have taught classes, voiceover classes. It's not something that I do regularly, but I have coached a few classes. And I think the biggest barrier that the students have is trying to be what they think voiceover is. And so what I would change and what I offer to them to change is start off being you, right? If you were having a conversation with your friends, how would you say this? Don't think about what you thought the commercial wanted you to say. How would you say this? You're laughing, you're with a bunch of people, you're talking to your grandma, you're talking to your teachers, right? Who is this? Who's the audience for this? Now talk to that audience who you know. How would you talk to them? Then, after you become very natural in the way that you say it to them, then let's talk about how do we perfect this with voiceover technique. Because in voiceover, they're no longer looking for the big baritone announcery voice. they're looking for what we're doing right now. They're looking for this kind of conversation. And then they want you to talk about, Heinz ketchup, right? They want you to have to talk Heinz ketchup in the context of the way that we're speaking to each other right now. I just dipped some French fries into my Heinz ketchup, and it made it taste amazing, right? Like I would say that to you. I used a little bit of voiceover technique, but it was conversational. That's what everybody's looking for, because nobody wants to hear, I just dipped French fries in the Heinz ketchup and it was amazing. That's not how we talk, and so we don't relate to that.
Right.
Yeah.
It sounds authentic.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're beating you in the head to take the Heinz, right?
During your journey of pursuing, this passion, were there times when you thought about giving up? And if so, how did you overcome these obstacles and keep going?
Gosh, how many times have I thought about giving up? It doesn't matter if you do voiceover, if you do radio, if you do film, if you want to become a doctor or the lawyer or the fireman, you're going to want to give up. That's just life, right? Like, there are going to be times where you look at it and you realize you're not making enough money, or there are going to be times you're looking at it and, goodness gracious, you're studying to do this at 4:00 in the morning and the exam is at 8. Life wasn't ever told to any of us that it was going to be easy. Some of us were born into easy, but that's not most of our stories, right? And so there are a bunch of times when I wasn't making enough money. I couldn't buy the equipment that I needed. My sound sounded awful and I couldn't get it right. There were times where clients cheated me out of money, and you want to quit, right? And you're looking at your friends who have 9-to-5 jobs and they're getting a regular check every week, and they don't have to worry about their own health insurance, right? So those are some of the things. There have been so many times that I've been beat down by this. Ultimately, I got into voiceover because I enjoyed voiceover, but what people don't realize is that most of what I do is business. It's promotion, social media, SEO work, going out, shaking hands and kissing babies, calling people on the phone, right? Emailing people for hours and hours, things that go into their junk box. But this is real life, and real life dictates that you got to do the hard things so that things will be easy. Because if you do the easy things, things will be hard.
I like that.
And you've worked for 17 years. Is what is something, I guess you've learned like so much, but what is something that you have learned throughout all of these years that sticks with you still to this day?
Go after what you want. I've learned this not just in my career, but in my life, right? Where you have your mind focused on something that you really want, but then you think, wow, that's too hard or that's too expensive. So you shoot for something less. And when you get less, you're sitting there thinking, why didn't I just go for more? I've learned that in my career, because even though I failed way more times than I've succeeded, the times that I've succeeded and I shot for what I really wanted and I got it, it was so satisfying. What's
the thing you're most proud of, Dane?
You guys are throwing tough questions at me today. I'm proud of a lot of things. So I mentioned that I worked as a substitute teacher for 5 years. In that time, I wrote an audiobook, Dana the Procrastinator. I'm extra proud of that because it was like the icing on the cake of me working in education for a number of years, right? So it was the thing that connected my career, my job, excuse me, as an educator to my career as a voiceover talent. So I'm extra proud of that. I'm extra proud of all the work that I did with children in that 5 years. But I'm also proud of the commercials that I have produced. So I've produced thousands and thousands and thousands, especially nightclub commercials. And I'm really proud of those commercials. They don't have such an impact on society. They're not, getting people to do anything awesome, to change the world. But what I'm proud of is that my clients have always given me creative freedom. And it means that I could express myself in the craziest of ways sometimes. Some of the creative things that I've been able to do, like, and pushing the envelope, those are some of the things that I'm proud of.
And, you mentioned how you're like, you do it all, basically. How do you manage everything? Or like, how were you able to learn how to, produce your own commercials? How did you learn how to, promote yourself on social media?
Yeah, so trial and error. Many things are born out of necessity. So if you have to do it, then you're gonna learn to do it. And they say, how many hours is it, like 12,000 hours or something like that, in order to be perfect at something? You keep doing it. When I stopped working for the school system, I didn't have those many hours. I just had to do it and keep doing it. So when I wasn't producing something that was being paid for by a client, I was producing things just for me to practice doing it. But like I said, I failed at a lot of things before I started to succeed. So yeah, it's hard, but you have to ask, like, when things are hard, is it worth it? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah. And it's all about like not giving up, especially if you know that this is something that's worth it, and that's worth
And don't forget, I'm unemployable. So
But touching upon that, like, how do you find the perfect project to lend your voice to?
there are very few projects that I have shot down. Okay. I have shot down some, but there are very few. And what happens is, because I spend much time in marketing myself, my voice is a product. Okay. And so if you take any product, you put it on a shelf, you market it on TV, social media, et cetera, people come into the store, they buy that product, and they walk out of the store with that product. Okay. So my voice is that product. I market it on social media. I put it out into the world, and people walk in and they say, your voice is perfect. We want to buy that voice. And then I tell them, what it's going to cost, how long it's going to be until I deliver that to them. And then we keep going from there. So it's not necessarily me lending my voice. The buyers already know that my voice is perfect for their product. And so they come into the store.
How important would you say networking is for what you do?
Your network is your net worth, right? So my dad always said, it's not what you know or who you know, it's who knows you. In my opinion, and I say this to grown people, young people, the most important thing is who knows you, because sometimes that just puts you in the right place, and then you can show your talents, right? So there's another thing that's often said: if you give me a list of your 5 top friends, then I'll tell you who you are. The people who you hang around are the people that most reflect who you are. And so networking with the right people, with the CEO of AT&T, or the person who say you want to be in a fraternity, right? Well, you got to get to know the people in the fraternity, in that fraternity. You can't network with the people in another fraternity. It's networking, man. I live in Atlanta, and I can tell you, man, Atlanta runs on networking. Yeah, some of the most, influential people in this city, they all know each other. So yeah, I say look up and go network with those people.
And it also takes courage to put yourself out there so that you can be found.
I used to go to a lot of events, and I'd walk in there scared out of my mind because I know all these people got way more money than I do, way more pull than I do, right? And I need these people to say yes, right? And I walk into a place with a suit on. Never mind that every place that I went I was wearing the same suit, right? I just hope that nobody was at the last place. And I start talking to people and get to know the people in the room. And one of the things that you got to do is make sure that you're not trying to sell yourself to people. You're trying to make friends with people who will become your customers, right? Or make friends with people who are going to hook you up with, XYZ, give you that job or introduce you to things. People do business with their friends, right? So be genuine in networking with people, and it'll come around to you.
But, speaking about your various voiceover projects that you've done, has there been one that particularly stands out to you that you really enjoyed?
There's a ton of them. There are a ton of them. So I did one. I did a VO for a bunch of VOs for the Andrew Young Foundation back in 2017. And what was spectacular about that was that all of the films that were shown on the screen in the arena had my voice on them. And you had these big time celebrities coming out. Hank Aaron was there. Andrew Young was there. The mayor was there. Wyclef Jean was there. What's my guy from CNN? Forget his name. But there were just, Usher was there. He was standing right in front of me. He was standing right in front of me watching a film with my voice on it, right? Like everything in that arena that was pre-taped and shown on the big screen had my voice on it. And I was there. Nobody knew that the guys in the corner, in a corner standing there watching this was the person who voiced it. Nobody cared but me, right? But it was just way cool. And I've had a bunch of experiences like that. As you guys might know, I was the voice for the Harlem Globetrotters. I traveled with them for a few months. That was pretty cool. It was tough, and I have my differences with the Harlem Globetrotters and the way they do things, but it was still kind of cool. Like in this big arena, I'm the announcer and everybody's listening for my voice.
You've said a lot of great advice, but is there any piece of advice for anyone that's interested in maybe voiceover and doesn't know where to start that you would give them?
Where people start depends on where they are at this moment. If you are a student, the first thing that I would advise you to do is start just listening to commercials, not commercials that are produced by radio, I would advise you to listen to TV commercials, because sometimes the radio commercials have the on-air talents that are doing the commercials, and no offense to on-air talents, but generally they're not good at doing voiceover. They're used to having an announcer kind of style. And so listen to TV commercials, listen to how casually everybody speaks, and practice that. The second thing that I would say to do after you feel like you're comfortable with that, also read out loud. That's something that even I, in my career, after doing this for many, many years, I still need to do more of. It's a practice thing. The third thing that I would do, and the first two things are the free things. The next thing that I would do is try to find a voiceover coach. Okay, that's your first real foray into voiceover. You're going to have to get coached, and then take advice from that coach.
You've mentioned how you produce the commercials that you do. What's that process like? Your producing process like?
So it used to be a lot more difficult, but now I have templates. So my templates may consist of 20 tracks. Those tracks are loaded with a certain effects. Those tracks will be vocal tracks, sound effect tracks, music tracks. They will have certain kind of effects on the voice. And so I know those tracks, like, because I've had those templates for so long that it's like plug and play. But it took a long time for me to develop those templates just right. Yeah, but now it's a process. If you hand me a commercial, I can get that commercial done within an hour, barring that I don't have any other work done. One of the things that I've learned too is there are people who are experts at certain things. Rely on those people to do what they do best. So I do not do my own photoshopping for flyers and stuff like that. Even though, I mess around a little bit with Canva, right? But I rely on other people to do that stuff. Or there are some people who are experts at SEO. I rely on those people to be experts at SEO for my website. You cannot do everything and be great at everything. You can try to do everything and be okay at everything, but if you focus your energy on one thing, you'll be great at that one thing. One of my friends said to me something really smart one time. He said, older people are like laser beams, right? They learn to focus their energy on one thing and be intense with it, where young people are like flashlights, right? They shoot out a wide beam at a whole bunch of things, but nothing is like intense. And so, it takes a while for you to take that flashlight energy and close it in and get focused on one thing. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
It can be overwhelming having so many kind of options available to young people, like what they want to do. And
Yeah, pick one.
Yeah.
Be great at it.
And I think it's great that you mentioned that it's okay to ask for help if you're not, so good at something, because I think, sometimes someone wants to do like it all and not ask help, but it's okay to
I want
ask.
to do it all too, but let's be honest, right? Like that's taking away from what I'm great at.
Right. Before we end, Dane, we have a couple of rapid fire questions to ask you.
Let's go.
So the first question is, what is your favorite color?
I don't have a favorite color. I have a favorite shade, black.
Mm.
Describe yourself as a teenager in 3 words.
I was depressed. Yeah, I
Mm.
suffered from depression as a teenager. But I recognized that whatever was making me that way, um, they if it was other people or other circumstances, they didn't care. It wasn't their problem, it was mine. So like I have to live out my life to the happiest that I can. So I had to figure out how to brighten myself up. I was depressed, but that's a was, and I'm a pretty happy guy right now.
You could have any superpower. What superpower would you have?
I would be invisible.
Mm. That's a
Yeah,
good one.
yeah. Because I was thinking maybe I could fly, right? But if I was invisible, I can sneak onto flights.
That's very true, actually. Yeah.
Right? And then I could
Yeah.
be in places and find out what people really think about me. I mean, I think being invisible, I can go into places and learn things from people for free.
Right.
I mean, all kinds of things.
It's true.
Go mess
Yeah.
up things, you know, knock things over while people are in the room by themselves and scare the hell out of
Really mess with people.
them.
Yeah.
There's so much you can do if you're invisible.
Sneak into the political corridors of power and listen to what's happening
Oh my
behind
God.
the
Right.
scenes.
Steal secrets.
Oh, true.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
God, that would be incredible.
And lastly, what is a book that you have read recently or are currently reading that you would recommend?
So I'll tell you what's at the top of my shelf. Who Moved My Cheese is a book that's at the top of my shelf that I have read multiple times. And then there's a book called The Hustler's 10 Commandments, which I look at all the time because it gives 10 simple steps about being in business. What I recommend, any book that helps to move you forward,
Mm-hmm.
new ideas,
Yeah.
I recommend reading.
Yes,
Yeah.
very true. So thank you so much, Dane. We learned a lot about you. Thank you for taking your
Thank
time
you
out of the
guys.
day to sit down
I
and
had
talk
so much
with us.
fun
Oh,
talking to
yay.
you
So
guys.
do we.
I'm glad.
That
Yeah,
was
thank you.
fantastic.
Yeah, this is great.
I really hope that, like I was telling you guys, people don't have to be voiceover talent. Just start thinking about ideas. I have a niece, and my niece is 15 years old, and she's in Michigan, and I call her sometimes. And no pressure. What are you gonna do with the rest of your life? No pressure.
No.
You gotta think about what you enjoy, and then figure out if that's a pathway to a great future.
Right.
But I'm gonna leave you guys with this last thing, right? If you're at 15, like my niece, and things are coming at you, don't do nothing. Do something. Do something until you decide what you really want to do, but do something, right? Get a job doing something. Put burgers until you are doing something, learn something, try to perfect something, even if that's not what you want to do with the rest of your life. Just do something, because doing nothing, because life is always moving. If this is you standing still and life is moving this way, well, now you're behind life. So you always have to move with life. Right? And sometimes you even have to try to stay ahead of life, but you can't stand still. You have to learn something, you have to practice something, you have to do something. Doing nothing just doesn't work. It guarantees failure.
Awesome. That's a great
Yeah.
way to end this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Seriously.
Dane. We really enjoyed it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
having
Dane.
me. All right, guys, take care.
Did you enjoy this episode? If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Glendale Library Arts and Culture channel.
Tune in every Friday at 4:30 for Teen Gen Talks. And if you would like to contact us and be part of the Teen Gen Talks, please email us at teamgentalks@glendaleca.gov. Thank you. See you next episode.
Bye.
Bye.